Welcome to the Rotary Club of Tucson. Can you believe it? This is now our 8th virtual meeting, and I would have never guessed we'd be in this situation. It certainly is going to be a time to remember for our club and for the rest of our lives. You know, for our last virtual meeting, we had Patrick Galvin from Portland, Oregon, and I hope you enjoyed his message on the benefits of service. It's kind of like the random acts of kindness exercise we did earlier this year with Faye Morse. The takeaway from Patrick's message and the Random Act of Kindness project are the exact same. When you give of yourself in kindness or in service, we are the ones who actually derive great benefit. Our physical health and our emotional health all improve dramatically with service and kindness. This has been proven time after time in scientific study after study. Remember, I am from the U of A College of Science, so I tell you the truth. Certainly there are some nuggets in Patrick's talk related to Rotary, and in the Q&A session afterwards, I thought there were some ideas we might even be able to utilize in our own club. And speaking of the Q&A, I wanted you all to know we had an extensive session with Patrick after his TED Talk. So extensive, in fact, we had to shorten it down for the final virtual meeting. However, thanks to the new Rotary Club of Tucson YouTube channel, we've taken the entire Patrick Galvin keynote along with the entire Q&A session with our Rotarians, and we posted it as a separate video. I encourage all of you to go back and watch it. It's very interesting and a great dialogue. And to Patrick Galvin, good luck to you, and thanks again for visiting with us. So let me give you an update on our Rotary Foundation Annual Fund campaign I announced a few weeks ago. If you recall, our annual fund goal this year was $40,000, which was clearly a stretch goal for the club. A few weeks ago, we just had a tad above $31,000, and honestly, I didn't think it looked very good for us to reach the goal. However, I'm proud to say we have an incredible group of very generous Rotarians in this club. We are now just shy of our $40,000 goal with about 2 weeks left to go. Remember, your gift is matched 2 to 1. So a $100 gift becomes $300 and a $500 gift becomes $1,500. So if you desire a Paul Harris Fellowship for yourself or for a family member, now is the time. Like I've tried to do at every virtual meeting, what is the latest regarding live meetings with our Rotary Club? So let me bring all of you up to speed. A couple of weeks ago, the DoubleTree Contract Committee, headed up by Daryl Stewart, thank you Daryl, great job, we met with the DoubleTree administration to review and finalize our contract. You should know they were very accommodating to us. We had a frank discussion on the quality of our lunches, and this will be addressed, something I know that many of you had made comments about. We put in writing the number of times they can move us out of the ballroom and the lead time they must give us. You know, I never want to put our signature keynote speakers like Mike Candrea into the small and confined Bonsai Boojum room. So hopefully that will never happen again. They're loosening our lunch guarantees and our cancellation charges. And finally, and most important to you, our member, they actually have reduced our lunch cost for the next year. So all of that is good. However, regarding meeting again, the DoubleTree received word from its parent company, Hilton Hotels, and they said we cannot meet as a group until Governor Ducey lifts the 10-person large gathering requirement. Oh well, so what do? Here's the good news. Running parallel with these discussions, we are looking to move forward with our change of administration dinner party at Hacienda del Sol. It will be on Saturday, June 27th. You should all have received the SurveyMonkey survey to our Rotary membership earlier this week, Monday or Tuesday, I think it went out. We need to know how all of you feel about meeting with social distancing guidelines. So please take a moment, answer the survey as soon as possible so we can make an informed decision on the event. But we're soon to be together as a group. Hooray. Zoom meetings. In the interim, we've had our weekly Zoom calls. These have been a lot of fun, and we've decided to keep them going a while longer. We may change some of the times, but we all love seeing each other face to face. And if you haven't tried it, please do so. Last week, for example, we saw some people we haven't seen in a while. John Wong, Hugh Thompson, Ralph Phillips, Steve Pickering, and a few more. It's really a lot of fun, and we will be continuing these again for the next few weeks at least. Our YouTube channel, obviously for a large portion of our membership, the Rotary Club of Tucson YouTube channel is working. Last week's meeting, as an example, has almost 400 views, and most of the previous meetings are also in this 300 to 350 range. Our subscribers have really grown. We're nearly up to 90. So if you've not done so yet, please press the red subscribe button. All of our Rotary content going forward is going to reside on our YouTube channel. So what's happening with the Rotary Club of Tucson? Well, to stay on the sponsor theme from last week, I'd like to recognize our final group of generous Rotarians who help our club. This group generously provides sponsorship support over and above their dues every quarter. You see their logos on the website, on the screen when we're at the Doubletree, and in the Tucson newsletter that goes out every Monday. So here they are. Today we will thank 6 more of our Rotary sponsors. Chuck Sawyer, our past president and owner of Cartridge World. Kathleen Wicks from Ralph's Transfer and Storage. Keith Wiegand, Clyde Wansley Auto Sales. Pat Zumbush, who's here for a birthday, from Wellspring Financial Partners. Glenn Ewing, who has been fantastic helping Dorina and the office from EC Group. And finally, as you know, Rick Rose and Film Creations. We thank all of you for everything you do. So let's get to the rest of the program. And as always, we start with the pledge and the patriotic song. Well, both the pledge and the song today are really geared to our older members. First, the pledge was filmed in 1939, and you will not believe who does this version of the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'm not going to break the secret. And our patriotic song is performed by one of the most patriotic of all Hollywood stars from the 60s and 70s, John Wayne, who spent time at Old Tucson many years ago. This was a patriotic show done in 1970, and the song is God Bless America. Every major A-lister star is on this version of our favorite song, and it's guaranteed to bring a smile to your face. So enjoy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag, and I pledge allegiance to the flag of I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's all, folks.
Tomorrow, remember, this is my country and I'm going to do good for it. Just might work.
We'll never know unless we give it a fair try. Oh, yeah, and there's one other thing I'll say tomorrow because I say it every day of my life. God bless America.
That I love, stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies,
to the ocean,
white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night.
with the light from above,
From the mountains
to the prairies,
to the ocean, white with foam.
God bless America.
My home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet
Well, what did you think? I bet you didn't think Porky Pig was going to be doing the Pledge of Allegiance, and John Wayne. What an amazing guy, and it was really great to see all those famous faces from many, many years ago. Our inspiration is going to stay on the theme of graduations because we still have that going on around here. And it's going to be much like last week with the Admiral William McRaven commencement speech at the University of Texas. Now, we all know graduation from high school or college takes commitment and persistence and sacrifice. This story comes from 2013, and it's about 22-year-old Colin Smith and 72-year-old Ernest Green. And I want to ask you, as you watch this video, I want all of us to think if any of us could have or would have committed themselves the way Ernest Green did for Colin Smith. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it is truly one of the more inspirational stories I've seen. It's literally stunning that the love between these two men. So watch this and enjoy and be inspired.
We know it's the people of this country who make America great, whether they are young or old, or in this case, both. You're about to meet a friendship created by kindness, one thrown into tragedy, the other a kind of angel swooping down. Both defining America strong. ABC's Josh Elliott.
They are the unlikeliest of pairs. 22-year-old Colin Smith and 72-year-old Ernest Green, known to all here at High Point University as a package deal.
We always have a lot of fun.
Just prior to his freshman year of high school, Colin, a budding three-sport athlete, was involved in a horrific car accident, which left him paralyzed from the chest down.
When did they tell you what had happened and how bad it was?
Therapist came in and was like, hey, you're not going to walk again. Basically, your life has been stopped and you have to figure out and pick the pieces up.
Green, a recently retired engineer, heard through his church about the accident and felt what he says was a calling to help Colin, whom he'd never met. So he called Colin's family, offering his services to the boy's overwhelmed parents. No one could have seen the remarkable journey, almost 8 years in the making, that was beginning. Green put in 12-hour days, leaving his home before dawn to get to Colin's house by 6 a.m. He would then get Colin out of bed and ready for school, and then make the 45-minute drive to High Point University, attending classes with and taking notes for Colin, all while pushing him 3 miles a day or more.
Did you ever feel sorry for him?
Probably some, but I've also felt like he could do what he wanted to do.
And just weeks ago, Colin graduated from college. And of course, it was Ernest pushing him onto that stage.
I'd been pushing him all over campus for 4 years. I wanted to push him up to get his diploma.
Green was surprised with one of his own. Fitting and hard-earned for two men who over the better part of a decade have come to embody together what it means to be America strong.
You guys always going to be a package deal?
Probably.
Without him, I wouldn't have gotten to where I needed to be or wherever I'll go. It takes a lot to get somebody to be mobile and believe they can do things.
Do you think about the love that he's had for you and the love that you have for him? Can you quantify it?
Really don't have a way to measure it. You know, once again, how do you describe Ernest? You can't. It's hard to describe what we mean to each other.
Josh Elliott, ABC News, High Point, North Carolina.
Well, here we are. We're in our 8th virtual meeting, and we have a car show coming up in October. And I bet all of you are kind of wondering what is going on with the car show. So I've asked 2020 car show chair Cliff Bowman to come in and address us. And Cliff joined our club in 2008. He's a past president from a couple of years ago. He was a decorated A-10 pilot for the United States Air Force. And now he's retired, and he now teaches A-10 pilots at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. And finally, he's our 2020 car show chair. Please welcome Cliff Bowman.
Hello, fellow Rotarians. I hope everyone is healthy and safe, and I sure do miss all of you. Now, in these unprecedented times, the Tucson Classics Car Show may not be the first and foremost on your minds, but I bet most of you have thought, hey, I wonder what is going on with the car show. Well, let me fill you in a bit on car show happenings. The car show executive committee and I have been preparing since the end of last car show for this year's car show. We have reached out to sponsors, sent email blasts to car owners, and about 100 have already signed up to date. We have updated our website, made improvements to the watering and fertilizing of the Gregory School field, and we are continuing to improve the car show to make it the best show in Arizona. Okay, so you guys are working on it, but will we have a car show? Well, much like every other large event in Arizona, and in the country for that matter, we really just don't know. Your guess is as good as mine at this point. As the state reopens, if we do not encounter too many issues with COVID-19, I would say our chances are probably pretty good to have the car show. If the reopening leads to another outbreak and or a lockdown, we may be out of luck at that point. So the next question you might have is, what should I be doing to get ready for our potential car show? Well, your club leadership has decided that we will continue to press on and work towards hosting the 14th Annual Tucson Classics Car Show on 17 October. So if you are one of the team captains, it's probably about time that you get together with your committee and start working on your areas. Next question is, what are we going to do if the car show is canceled? Well, at the very least, we will conduct a raffle. So this will be a raffle, and the drawings will go on as scheduled. If there is no show, we really need you to step up for our charities. And by that, I mean we need to sell those car show tickets, because that may be our only source of revenue. Our goal is to hit 30,000 car show tickets sold this year. So we will need everyone to pitch in and do just a little bit more this year to reach that goal. And so now you're thinking, well, I've been busting my beep to sell tickets. How can I sell more car show tickets this year than in previous years? I need help. Well, I agree that you need that help, and the car show executive committee, the ticket sales team, and I need to help you sell those tickets. And to that end, we are in the process of hiring a professional media savvy business to help us develop a social media campaign and social media tools for both the club and you as individual members to be able to reach out to your networks and sell more car show tickets. Our ticket sales team is also working on ways to make selling tickets more fun and to provide games and prizes for those who reach certain ticket selling levels. So what can I do now for the car show? Well, get in touch with your team captains to ask what needs to be done. Become familiar with our website, TucsonClassicsCarShow.com. And when was the last time you visited the site? Now may be a good time to become more familiar with it. Be a striver and sell those car show tickets by promoting the website and online ticket sales. Hey, I'm new to the club, and what can I do to help? Well, first and foremost, sell those tickets online. In the next month or so, we will get actual physical tickets to you, and you can sell those too. The areas of the car show planning and execution where we usually need the most help are with sponsorships, marketing, traffic and parking, sliding the classic cars, Friday night auction and dinner, and volunteer coordination. There are other areas as well, so contact your mentor or sponsor and let them know that you want to help. At this point, I appreciate all the effort and support that has gone into and will go into this year's car show, and all we can do is do the best that we can, and that's all that I ask.
And now to our keynote speaker, Dr. Kelly Reynolds. She's a professor from the University of Arizona College of Public Health, and we're going to have a typical Matt Russell introduction that we've done earlier in the year. But before we do that, she came in and she had a fantastic presentation. However, it was a little bit long. So for the purposes of the virtual meeting, we had to shorten it down a bit to fit the confines of the time we allocate. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is we, just like Patrick Galvin, we have taken the entire presentation and posted it to our YouTube channel. So please go to the YouTube channel after you watch this meeting, and then you'll be able to see all of her comments and everything she had to say. So with that, let me just go to Matt Russell.
Dr. Kelly Reynolds received her doctorate degree from the University of Arizona and a master's degree from the University of South Florida's Department of Environmental and Occupational Health. Currently, Dr. Reynolds is professor and chair of the University of Arizona's Department of Community, Environment, and Policy. She's program director of Environmental Health Sciences at the Zuckerman College of Public Health and director of the Environment Exposure Science and Risk Assessment Center at the University of Arizona. Between 1971 and 2000, waterborne pathogens resulted in nearly 600,000 cases of serious illness in the United States. And Dr. Reynolds suspects that millions of cases were undocumented. So she is working with the U of A engineers using lasers to detect human viruses in drinking water. This type of technology would not only expedite the process of discovering waterborne viruses, but it could also detect viruses that were previously undetectable. In another study, Dr. Reynolds is monitoring levels of MRSA bacteria in the home by identifying its survival on soft surfaces, including carpets and towels. Her message today is extremely timely, as from a scientist's point of view, we can continue to develop and improve methods to identify biological hazards, but that information is only impactful if the public actively participates in reducing their exposure to these known and unknown pathogens. Let's have a warm, socially distanced Rotary welcome for Dr. Kelly Reynolds.
Hello, I'm Kelly Reynolds, professor at the University of Arizona in the Community, Environment, and Policy Department. And I'm here today to talk a little bit about the COVID-19 disease and the COVID virus, and to tell you a little bit more about how, as businesses start to reopen, how you can really stay safe, not just at work, but also at home. So we've all heard the basic strategies of infection prevention, hand hygiene, surface disinfection, quarantining or self-isolating, social distancing, and even wearing face masks. But I think some of the direction that's out there, we're not sure how to really apply it. For example, what should be the frequency of hand washing? Where is it most appropriate to wear a mask? And do I have to wear a mask all the time? And as we go back to work, I think these are some of the really primary questions that people are asking. How do I know I'm using the right products for disinfection? When do I need to disinfect? And so that's some of what we're going to be talking about in the slideshow today. So let's talk a little bit about virus characteristics. A virus in a typical sneeze, will travel a 3 to 6 foot trajectory. Most of the aerosols in a sneeze, the large droplet aerosols, which you're hearing the most about in terms of spreading the COVID virus, is that it can spread for 3 to 6 feet and maybe even further. So you're hearing things about, is 6 feet enough? Is 12 feet better? And the answer is really 6 feet is enough for the large droplets that settle very quickly, but there are some small droplet aerosols that can spread even further. And some people are estimating even up to 20 feet or more. A sneeze can travel at 100 to 200 miles per hour. So when somebody sneezes in your vicinity, it would be very difficult to get out of their way. And so that's why we're really promoting wearing masks. And it's really that the mask will protect the person who is sneezing. It will protect you from coming into contact with their large droplet aerosols. It's not 100% effective, but it will provide some barrier for transmission of the disease. Now, once the aerosols release into the air, we know that they settle on surfaces within about 10 minutes or less, and that's where you may have a longer period of time of potential exposure, because on surfaces the virus can survive for hours to days, and we've seen some evidence that it can even survive up to 9 days, even 17 days, in some data that has been published out there. But the reality is we're still learning a lot about this virus, and that may be the extreme survival time. But depending on how the virus is suspended on surfaces, whether it's in mucus or saliva or feces. We know it can be shed in feces. We're not sure if it's viable in feces or it can be spread to other people that way, but it's very hardy if it's in fecal particles, and it can survive for days on surfaces at that point. So like I say, we're still learning a lot about this virus, and I think at this point, the idea is to really put the most protective precautions in place that you possibly can to reduce your risk of infection and exposure. Now, the other thing that's really tricky about the coronavirus is that up to 25% of people who are infected, we believe, are asymptomatic. So you can have the virus, it can be growing in your body, you can be spreading it through your breath or aerosols from coughing and sneezing. However, you don't even know you're sick. And so that's another reason why the directive has been for everyone to wear face masks in case you are part of that asymptomatic population. So I really want to talk about my specialty of research, which is fomite contamination. And fomites are simply surfaces. So every pen, every sunglass, tabletop, these are all fomites. They're inanimate objects, and we know they play a significant role in germ transmission overall. How big of a role they play with the coronavirus is still being researched and investigated, but overall it's a good idea to maintain a hygienic environment, because as this slide shows, if you're a person who's ill, and let's say you go to work sick, you sneeze, and we talked about how the aerosols can spread, and the aerosols settle on fomite surfaces, survive for long periods of time. But it's when you come into contact with your hands with those fomites, and then you can transmit the virus to your body through your eyes, nose, and mouth. The coronavirus is most likely spread through the nasal passage with that cycle of transmission, and so we really want to be conscious about how often we touch our face and really try to minimize the number of face touches. We've done a lot of research at the University of Arizona looking at how often people touch their face, and I've been doing a lot of observing people wearing face masks. I can tell you that if you're wearing a face mask, you tend to touch your face a lot more than you normally would. It's just something we're not used to wearing, and it's a difference that we think we always need to really adjust. So it's really important to think about how fomites can transmit illnesses. Another study we conducted at the University of Arizona was we actually planted a virus. This was a real virus. It just didn't infect people. It infects bacteria. So this virus we planted in a healthcare environment. This is a diagram of a long-term care facility. And we mimicked if one of the surfaces, actually two surfaces in this facility, became contaminated by a sick patient, how would that virus spread throughout the facility throughout the workday? We were actually surprised that it was pretty easy to find the virus after only 4 hours of seeding the site with the virus. We saw it spread through the entire facility. So in the diagram, everywhere you see a blue dot is where we placed our tracer, and everywhere you see a red dot is where by lunchtime, after 4 hours of seeding the environment, we saw the tracer spread throughout the entire facility and even in separate wings of the healthcare facility. So overall, 64% of the surfaces we tested post-inoculation were positive. So it's really important to understand how our hands play a role in germ transmission. not just coronavirus, but influenza virus, other common cold viruses, other enteric viruses like norovirus, rotavirus that cause diarrhea. This is a primary route of transmission that we want to try and stop. So hand washing and surface disinfection can break this cycle of transmission. Another study we did at the University of Arizona was to mimic somebody going to work sick. And this is really important to see what happens if you go to work sick, which is really not advised because you can really potentially contaminate so many other people in the office. So in this study, we call it the Office Wellness Study. It was conducted at the Mellon Enid Zuckerman College of Public Health. But we see that what we did was seated one person's hands as the sick person going to work. And when that person went to work, we told them, go about your normal work day, wash your hands when you normally would, and we're just going to see if the virus spreads throughout the environment. What we found again by lunchtime is that over 50% of the surfaces in the office building that we tested were contaminated with the virus tracer off of one person's hands. Over 50% of that person's work colleagues, when we tested their hands at lunchtime, were contaminated with the seed virus. So we didn't expect the results to be this dramatic. And the reality is that even if one person comes to work sick, they can spread viral contamination to half the surfaces in half of their coworkers' hands in just a few hours. We also in this study implemented an intervention, and this was a very simple intervention. We provided hand sanitizer, we provided disinfecting wipes and tissues to everyone in the office, and it was an office building of about 80 people. 40 people said, no thanks, I don't really need the products, I don't want to use the products. 40 people said, we'll take the products. So the other interesting thing about this study is only about half the population agreed to be compliant with using hand sanitizers and disinfecting surfaces around their workspace. So even with a fairly low compliance rate, we see that in the intervention phase of this study, the same seated person going back to work, doing what they normally do, and we did this multiple times, but we found that by lunchtime, only 10% of the coworkers tested positive and only 9% of the surfaces. So that was over an 80% reduction of contamination levels in the workplace. Now we calculated what an 80% reduction of exposure would mean for people coming into contact with a virus in the workplace, and we found that that resulted in about an 80% reduction of respiratory and enteric infection risk for the workplace. So non-occupational hazards. A lot of people ask me, okay, I'm going to work, and work is work. I have no choice to be there. But when I'm home, how do I make sure I don't bring things from work back home? I want to make sure I'm not exposing my family to things I might pick up in the external home environment. And we did the same kind of tracer study in a home environment, and the results are really interesting. We studied both homes where people had an active influenza infection, a real influenza infection, and then we also did a similar tracer study where we mimicked if one person came home with a virus on their hands, how would it spread throughout the household? And what we learned is that germs spread really fast at home. So 100% of the family members' hands tested positive for our tracer virus and for the influenza virus, and about 98% of the high-touch surfaces. And you can see on this slide a list of some of the surfaces we sampled, just the kitchen table, countertops, bathroom counters, light switches, remotes, bedroom door handles. Maybe these are things you don't think about disinfecting in your home, but these are high-touch surfaces that we know play a key role in the transmission of germs through fomites. The other interesting thing about this that we learned is just watching people's behaviors at home. You feel more comfortable at home. You don't think about your home as being a site of germ transmission, but in fact, it's that act of letting your guard down that's probably creating behaviors that spread pathogens even more efficiently. So think about what you can do at home. I hear a lot of people are having designated decon people at home or turning their mud rooms into decon rooms, decontamination rooms. And this is a good idea. If you're coming back, especially at the time when we're in a pandemic, if you're coming back from work, it's a good idea to have an area where you change your clothes, certainly change your shoes. There's been a number of studies showing even before the coronavirus outbreak, but even during the coronavirus outbreak, that shoes can be contaminated from healthcare workers, the most recent study, and brought home. So we want to make sure that we're changing shoes. Might be a good idea to have a designated pair of shoes in the home, and maybe it's something that can be easily disinfected. A simple disinfecting wipe down of your shoes can really reduce the germ count. We've seen these interventions be very, very effective. So with the field data that I was talking about, our tracer studies, how do we link this data to real health outcomes? And in research, we do this using a process called quantitative microbial risk assessment, or QMRA. And it's really a mathematical modeling approach. We can predict with some very efficient very essential probability that if you get exposed to a germ, what's your likelihood of becoming sick? And so there's a lot of research on this, and this is how we calculate if you have germs in the environment at a certain level, what's the probability you'll be exposed, and then if you're exposed, what's the probability of getting sick? And there's a number of different studies that we've done here at the University of Arizona. These are all published data reports in peer-reviewed journals. And you can kind of scroll through very similar studies with tracers that we've done in offices, in urgent care environments, in hotels. This was interesting. In a hotel, some of you are going to be traveling as you get back to work, but we planted our seed tracer in one hotel room, so pretending one person in that room was sick, and then sampled different rooms as the cleaning staff moved from one room to another. And when we sampled those rooms in succession, we found that the virus spread from that first room to 3 to 5 rooms after that. And we found it in a conference room where there was a conference going on at the same time. So our tracer was being spread throughout the hotel facility. But when we implement these interventions that I've been talking about, simple interventions, hand hygiene, surface disinfection, and now we're really promoting social distancing and mask wearing or other barriers, we find that they're very effective. And you can see on the right side with the red bold, the probability reduction that we have in disease from these simple interventions. So up to 99% reduction in the home if you're using proper disinfecting products. So this was a study we did with Tucson Fire Department. They actually called us around 2006 and said they were having an outbreak of MRSA infections. MRSA is a bacterial infection, it's a staph infection, and this is a methicillin-resistant staph. So that means it's an antibacterial-resistant strain of bacteria and very difficult to treat. So at the time we were called in to do an evaluation of their work site, they had 19 cases of MRSA that were actively going on. 4 of those cases were very serious. They resulted in a hospitalization, or 4 hospitalizations. And then we also had source tracking information that one infection in one of the firefighters was transmitted to their 6-month-old daughter at home. And these were very serious infections. When we sampled their work site, we found that about 7% of the surfaces tested positive for MRSA. We found that their station services were the most contaminated. The ambulances and the medic trucks, where they serve patients, were very, very clean. But it was their station environment, so their home-like environment, where they let their guard down and they weren't as diligent about what to clean. And when we implemented our infection control strategy there, we saw 0 MRSA cases for the next 3 years. And we found just a random positive of the bacteria over time on their surfaces. And we tested a lot of surfaces. So from this information, we developed an infection control training and an infection control checklist. I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. And you can access that by the link that I have here, a YouTube link. It's a 10-minute micro training, a rapid training video that has some really good hints for how to stay healthy at work, especially if you work in the healthcare environment. So the CDC has a policy for really what's required to reopen and relax our social isolation policies. And this is just some of the information that the CDC has posted. If a city is seeing a downward trajectory in cases for 14 days, if they have a robust testing program, then there's more confidence that they can reopen and reopen safely. This was data on the right side. You see a map of the United States and different cities where we're seeing very high cases, the total number of cases and deaths as of May 28th of this year. And it's still very concerning. We're still seeing a lot of spread of the virus. So all the more reason as we go back to work and we're transferring between work and home that we're making sure to be very cautious with some of the tips and protocols that I'm telling you about today. So this is what I like to call the hierarchy of controls, and other people refer to it as the pyramid of prevention. And so this upside-down pyramid is meant to really categorize some of the controls you have at your disposal to reduce the cycle of germ transmission. Physical distancing has been the most effective intervention, and so that's why we've been really promoting it. 6 feet or more is the directive. But you also have engineering controls at your disposal. So things like increasing the ventilation in your workspaces or in your home, increasing your intake volume of air and recirculating air at a higher rate will help to keep more clean air in your workspace, in your home space, and flush out any air that may be contaminated by somebody who's spreading the virus. Other things that you can do that we consider engineering controls. Engineering controls, in a sense, are passive controls. These are things that your workers don't have to do anything. They just exist in the workplace, and these things are happening automatically to reduce their exposure. So again, ventilation and installing barriers. I think many of us have seen plexiglass barriers being installed at gas stations or any frontline workers. This could be very effective for, again, reducing aerosol transmission from people coming to your work site. Another thing to think about are the 3 T's. This is testing, tracing, and treating. We know that infection screening is going to be very important as we start to become in closer contact with other people. Regular temperature scans is something you should really implement in the workplace or advocate for your workplace to implement. Daily health checks, just even a simple questionnaire, having people really stop and take note. Am I feeling well today? Am I not feeling well today? And just drawing attention to, if you're not feeling well today, we support you staying home. So having those policies in place where your workplace that supports people staying home will protect your entire workforce, and it's worth your while to do that. Diagnostic and serology testing, we're hearing a lot about that. This can be very effective for knowing if you have asymptomatic infections, people carrying the virus, but they're not perfect. They're not 100% effective. You can have false positives, you can have false negatives. So we need to really understand what they're telling us and understand what they can't tell us. But it's another line of defense you may have for trying to protect the workplace and having a surveillance in place to make sure people who are sick are not coming to work. Contact tracing. I'm going to show you a slide in a few minutes about one of the local apps we have in Arizona, but there's a lot of apps out there right now that can actually collect health information from you anonymously and then identify if there's increased cases in your local area. So that might be very important for really helping your health department track, are we seeing a spike in cases? Is there a zip code in particular where we're seeing a really big spike in cases, and maybe there's a certain facility there that we need to see if an intervention needs to be put into place. So I recommend that you sign up for one of these apps. Hopefully your entire workplace will sign up for the same app because it's run by a zip code, and so you can identify if you're seeing an outbreak in your area, and you maybe can step up some of these infection control protocols that we're talking about. Treating is maybe a little bit far off. We're doing a lot of research on it. But we may be 18 months out before there's an effective vaccine that is widely available to our population. So we're not so much relying on treatments yet, but hopeful that they're coming down the pike. But because we don't have very effective treatments right now or vaccines, again, that's why it's so important to reduce your exposure in the first place, since we can't treat you post-exposure very effectively. So thinking about some of the things we've talked about today, doing your own hazard assessment in your workplace, encouraging the use of PPE and training people on how to use it effectively, and really identifying environmental hygiene interventions and behavioral awareness. The other thing I just want to touch on briefly, we haven't heard too much about it. It is on the CDC website. I've done a lot of research on this myself. We've developed a training at the University of Arizona on this, but it's Legionella infections. So with many buildings having been shut down, if there wasn't somebody in your building routinely running the water faucets, then you could have water that is stagnant in your premise plumbing when you come back to the building. And we know that stagnant water in pipes grows Legionella. And Legionella is a very serious respiratory infection, highly fatal infection. We want to make sure that we're not creating new exposures to a different type of pathogen because we've shut down our buildings. So make sure that when you come back to work, somebody is designated to flush all of the pipes if that hasn't been done routinely while your building was shut down. The other thing to think about, this was a study we did on wheelchairs. We called it Spores on Wheels because the wheelchairs in hospital environments aren't necessarily disinfected between patient use. And so we were finding that there was a high level of contamination that was wheeled all throughout the healthcare facility. And so I'm showing you this slide not because maybe all of you are in the healthcare environment, but just to think about equipment in your environments that maybe are likely to be contaminated but rarely disinfected. Are you thinking about some of these cross-contamination potential equipment that could spread illness? And so it's just something to think about. What's specific to your work environment? Where do you find reliable information? I am a big proponent of the CDC right now because I think they've really stepped up and provided very current information. They're constantly updating their websites. I think it's a great site to go to get the most current information. And so they have lots of directives on how to clean the workplace. What if we find out somebody came to work and was sick? What do we do to disinfect our workplace? They have detailed information and very concise couple of pages worth of information on what you can do, really practical advice. So I'll direct you there for the most up-to-date information beyond this presentation. And the other thing that I think is a really good resource site is the World Health Organization's Mythbusters. We're hearing a lot of rumors out there about, does this kill coronavirus? Does this cure coronavirus? And the reality is that there are a lot of myths. And so the WHO has this really nice Mythbusters website. You can download the posters and post them in your facility and just really try to squash some of the rumors that are out there. Eating spicy food does not kill the virus, and drinking alcohol, does not kill the virus. So there's a number of things that people, maybe wish would work, but don't. And so we need to make sure we have the proper facts and make sure that these rumors aren't circulating throughout our workspace. We can help spread proper information. So with that, that's the end of my talk, and I'm just putting some contact information on this last slide. Please feel free to email me or visit my website, which is the Environment Exposure Science and Risk Assessment Center, or esrac.arizona.edu. For more information, we're constantly updating our outreach materials as well, and I'd be happy to take any questions any of you have. Just please reach out to me. Thank you.
Dr. Reynolds, thanks for coming today to address the Rotary Club of Tucson, especially during this crazy time of the coronavirus. Your message comes at a fantastic time. We appreciate your insights on how to stay safe in our current environment. We really appreciate it. Now, Kelly, one of the things we do with our speakers is we give a book to our Make Way for Books library. And we ask that you sign the inside of the book and the little placard in here. And the title of today's book is No More Naps. So there you go. Well, we do have some birthdays again, and our first one is Nina Trasoff, and she is going to be calling in from Zoom. She didn't want to leave the home, and so we recorded her Zoom call, and we're going to show it that way. But a little background, she has been a member of our club since 1991, 29 years. Her birthday was a couple of weeks ago on May the 15th. Now, here's some stuff you wouldn't think about. She was a professional dancer on Broadway. She danced with Sammy Davis Jr. in Las Vegas. She was a KGUN 9 TV news anchor for many, many years, and she was a Tucson City Councilwoman. So happy birthday, Nina. Thanks for doing this on a Zoom. You're the first Zoom birthday we've ever had.
Well, I'm honored. I'm also honored to be one of the first women in this club.
Oh, cool.
This year marks 29 years. I'm 29 and a half years in, and I share the honor with the Honorable Katie Dusenberry of being the longest standing women members of this club. And I've got to tell you, Bob, things have changed over the years. When we used to come to meetings back in the early 90s, there would be 2 or 3 women, plus Helen Middleton, our wonderful executive secretary, with 250 to 270 men.
Wow.
And there were a lot of adjustments that had to be made. It was a lot of fun. But I think the influence of women has added a great deal to the club. And it's lovely the way it is right now. I just love it. I'm so proud to be a member of this club. So I just celebrated my 74th.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a big wow. So next year it's going to mark 30 years in the club and my 75th. So I'm looking forward to that. But for this year, my gift to the club is going to be to the annual fund. Thank you for all you're doing to help support that.
Right.
And it's going to complete my 3rd Paul Harris Fellowship.
Yes.
This one for my 13-year-old grandson, Cooper.
Wow, that's great. So you will be 75 years old next year in our 100-year centennial year.
You got it.
You're going to
We
be
can all celebrate really big together.
You'll be the Rotarian of the year.
I will work hard to be a good member of the club.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Nina. I appreciate it. Our second birthday is from Pat Zumbush. He's been a member since 2003. His birthday is next Monday, June the 8th. He's a car show chair in 2014. He's a Paul Harris Fellow +1. He went to the same school as Lute Olson, Augsburg College. He has an MBA from the University of Chicago. He was a CPA for many years for Ernst & Young, but most of his career has been as a financial advisor, and he's currently at Wellspring Financial Advisors and a sponsor of our Rotary Club. So thank you, and happy birthday, Pat.
Thanks, President Bob. First of all, let me thank Dick Hamill for inviting me into the club, and Don Rollins for being a stellar mentor to me. On this occasion of my 65th birthday, during this surreal time of the coronavirus pandemic, let me just share some general perspectives on three realities: the physical, the metaphysical, and the spiritual. On the physical aspect, because no woman should be sequestered with me for months and my wife didn't feel comfortable flying, I just completed driving her to Minnesota, where she'll spend the next 3 months with her 5 brothers and sisters and maybe some portion of my 6 brothers and sisters. As I cross mile after mile, I can attest to you that we have a beautiful country, truly spacious in her skies and waves of grain. On the metaphysical side, in northwest Texas and Oklahoma, I observed hills of cattle, and in Iowa saw sheds full of pigs. As a country kid by background and former CEO of the community food bank, I would have salivated to have the beef, pork, and milk we are currently exterminating or pouring on the ground. With America's nascent ingenuity, we simply have to find a way to put those resources to work to be beneficial to all. Lastly, on the spiritual side, let me simply say that I've taken some of this non-normal time to know my God better and what is expected of me on this earth. It's been both humbling and yet invigorating to ask, why am I here? I can only encourage my fellow Rotarians to use this pandemic time well, to grow in appreciation and depth. Finally, 2 contributions. The club has reduced its quarterly bill from $320 to $130, so let me contribute this savings of $190 to our foundation. That amount is nearly the $250 we need to contribute as each member to the car show, and we still have our commitment to JTED to make good on. I'll contribute the same amount to Rotary International and my Paul Harris. Thanks for listening.
And finally, our last birthday today is Daryl Stewart. He joined Rotary in 2008 and our club in 2015. His birthday is on June 16th, and let's just say Daryl is a Renaissance man. He went to 3 colleges, clearly all very similar to one another: the University of Minnesota, the University of Oklahoma, and Tulane University in New Orleans. I have no idea how he navigated that, but after grad school, he went to Cairo, Egypt, and worked for Anwar Sadat's wife. He was an Indy 500 pit team. And then finally, he met Walt Disney at age 12 and still has the gift that Walt Disney gave him. Incredible stuff. So, happy birthday, Daryl.
Thanks, President Bob. As you can see, my family is taking the social distancing concern to a new level. But I'm here to use my birthday minute to talk about our annual fund. The Rotary Annual Fund, last year goal was $23,000. So it's clear that President Bob was off of his psychotherapeutic drug regimen when he set a goal of $40,000 this year. But with unprecedented goals are unprecedented opportunities. And now we have the opportunity for a 2-to-1 match toward Paul Harris Fellowships. So being the tight-fisted Norwegian opportunist that I am, I brought a check and we'll be filling it out to buy 2 Paul Harris Fellowships. That isn't filled out yet.
Oh.
And we'll be donating them or giving them to some very good friends of mine when we get back together at the DoubleTree. We are this close with polio. We're even that much closer making our goal of $40,000. We're currently around $35,000, $37,000, but all of us as a team can pull together and make Bob look good in achieving his $40,000 goal. Look forward to seeing you when we get back together at the DoubleTree.
So happy birthday, everyone. And I ask you the question, how is it possible that I know about Nina Trasoff and Sammy Davis Jr., about Darryl Stewart and his interaction with Walt Disney, and then Pat Zumbush and Lute Olson? So in a club of our size, really getting to know each other, even when we're meeting in person, is hard. It's even harder when our entire membership world of relationships is controlled by Zoom, teleconferences, some occasional phone calls, and a few emails. That's where High Profiles comes in. I was able to find all of this information that I just told you about just by going to each member's profile in our Club Runner directory. It's absolutely amazing what you can find about our membership. And I suggest that you scroll through the directory of our members and see what you can find. Most of the time, it's pretty fascinating when you hear about the background of some of our members. And on the topic of amazing background information, let me give you one stunning example. And this is on one of our favorite Rotarians, Irene Decker. So, on the high profile, under the question, easy question, where were you born and where did you grow up? For most people, pretty easy question, correct? Well, let me verbatim tell you what Irene Decker's answer is. Quote, I was born in Holland 10 days after World War II broke out. I was supposed to be called Maria. However, as my father took me to church to be baptized, bombs flying in the air, he chose to call me Irene, since that's the name of peace. It took many years to realize that in times of war, not all of the enemy is bad. So one Sunday morning, the doorbell rang, and it was a German officer with a young soldier at his side demanding to search the house. So let me do a little sidebar here. We're going to show a few photos of the Nazis and the Gestapo searching homes during this period. These are not Irene's home, but it gives you a sense of what this must have been like. So back to Irene. The officer was looking for our radio and our bicycle, which were illegal to have at that time. He sent the young soldier upstairs with my father to follow. The young soldier walked straight to the closet where the bike and the radio were hidden. He looked at my father, he saw the radio and the bike, and then he shouted down to the German officer and yelled, "Nothing up here!" This taught me that even in the worst of times, not all people were evil. Now there's more about Irene. She went on to work for the Bank of Montreal. She bought a printed circuit board company in direct competition with IBM. She sold it, and then, as we all know, she owned a flower company for many years. All of this stuff is on Irene Decker's high profile in Club Runner. So here's my appeal to you. We're trying to get to 80% participation in filling out the high profile sections on our member directory. We're currently at about 65%. We need about 40 more people. We realize not everybody will do this or wants to do it. I get it. But if you have 15 minutes right now, why don't you log into Club Runner and fill it out? Everyone in the club would like to know more about you. While you may not be as interesting as Nina or Darryl or Pat, or for Irene Decker for that matter, everyone has a story to tell. And if you don't know where this is on Club Runner, or you don't know how to log into Club Runner, just give Bob Schaff, who's running this project, or Dorina a call, and they can guide you through the process. Trust me, it's really, really easy. Well, after that information, I think it's time to have a little fun and laughter, don't you think? So if you recall, Last week we showed the a cappella group Home Free and their rendition of God Bless America under the Mount Rushmore. I promised you to bring them back this week, and this song is in honor of what we've been dealing with for the past 3 months. It's called Quarantine, so enjoy.
If you search for friendliness, it might be hard to find. But for now, it's how we have to live. Don't you try to second guess, 'cause you might just lose your mind. Instead, consider the alternative. Quarantine is such a lonely word. Everyone is feeling blue. Whoa, quarantine is hardly what's preferred, and mostly what I need from you. Stand 6 feet from anyone when you fraternize, and don't forget to cough into your sleeve. Cough into your sleeve. Oh. Better yet, use Skype or Zoom to help you socialize. Just stay home if you don't have to leave. Quarantine is such a lonely word. Everyone is feeling blue. Feeling blue. Quarantine is hardly what's preferred, and mostly what I need from you. Can't find toilet paper, can't find groceries. Thank God for Domino's and Amazon deliveries. The only thing that comforts me is to lather, rinse, repeat with soap. With soap. When I'm binging Netflix, don't be too concerned. No, it's not the only thing I do. Not the only thing I do. I get Disney in the mix, and Apple TV gets a turn. HBO, Prime Video, and Hulu. Quarantine is such a lonely word. Everyone is feeling blue. Whoa, quarantine is hardly what's preferred, and mostly what I need from you.
Well, Rotarians, it's time for our Rotary inspiration, and I chose a video that is close to us. It's called Wheelchairs in Mexico. And in my continuing effort to show examples of how Rotary International and the Foundation make an impact around the world, I found this one specifically connected to the Rotary Club of Tucson and one of the international projects we did a few years ago. Let's watch it together, and some of you will understand.
Lo que queríamos era formar un grupo de personas con discapacidad que pudiera ir trabajando cosas y ir rompiendo estos esquemas que había en torno a las personas con discapacidad, sobre todo en México.
Nos veían personas trabajando en el taller, entonces empezaban a preguntar si podíamos arreglar sillas y ruedas. Poder hacer algo en nuestra comunidad, con nuestra comunidad, para nuestra comunidad. Y Rotary es la mejor forma. Vas a encontrar una estructura que permite el acercamiento de conocimiento, herramientas y financiamiento también. Ya podemos ofrecer el trabajo a muy bajo costo a los usuarios y por lo tanto la cantidad de trabajo, la cantidad de reparaciones ha aumentado 500%. Todos los participantes en el proyecto ya tienen un ingreso decente. Pero hay beneficios que son más sutiles y eso hablo del impacto que tiene el proyecto en la cultura, en la sociedad, en la manera de mirar de la gente.
Gracias.
No es un megaproyecto, no es la construcción de un puente, no es una empresa mundialmente conocida, es esta pequeña piedra que está ahí para construir más cosas. Gracias, Rotary.
So what's the connection to the Rotary Club of Tucson from that piece? A number of years ago, under Joni Condit and Jim Lubinsky's presidential terms, we had a very similar wheelchair project in Mexico. We partnered with a group in Nogales, and we built innovative all-terrain wheelchairs. These chairs had mountain bike tires, and they could go down stairs, they could navigate over rocky roads and the cobblestone streets. They truly gave independence to the disabled in Mexico, and it was an amazing sight to see. And to top it all off, the chairs were built and manufactured by disabled Mexicans in wheelchairs themselves, just like the video we just experienced. There's some photos of our time there, and I have to tell you one really funny story. As we went down, our team went down to deliver the wheelchairs to the disabled, and we wanted to bring one back to the club to show other Rotary clubs what these chairs look like. But we didn't think we could get the chair through customs and across the border. So for about 30 minutes, our very own Sally Montaigne agreed to be disabled, and she got in the chair, and Jim Lubinsky pushed her across the international border. Nobody suspected or asked. It was just perfect. Anyway, again, Rotarians are truly people of action. Now I'd like to show you a little bit more about what we do as Rotarians. What you saw and what you've heard is some of the work we've done and some of the work that's happened all over the world. But I want to see exactly why we do what we do. Last week, from Patrick Alvin, we learned the power of service. And this video puts it all in perspective. Service is what we do, either here in Tucson or somewhere else around the world. Since it's impossible to do much in the way of physical service projects right now, I do encourage you to support the Rotary Foundation Annual Fund. Your support will do good somewhere around the world.
Rotarians contribute their time, energy, and passion to sustainable, long-term projects in their local communities and across the globe. I am often asked, what is Rotary? Rather than answering that question, I want to tell you what it means to me to be a Rotarian. I believe in Rotary and its motto of service above self. I believe in maintaining high ethical standards in one's business, profession, and one's personal life. I look for ways to engage Rotary and get involved. I support the Rotary Foundation to do good throughout the world. Being a Rotarian is a way of life, a satisfying, lifelong adventure I'm willing to give to, be a part of all that Rotary has to offer. I'm willing to dig a well that I will never drink from, build a house that I will never sleep in, prepare a meal that I will not eat. I trust the foundation to do good with the donations I give, help eradicate a disease. I am willing to step out of my comfort zone to serve those in need. What are you willing to do? I am proud to be a Rotarian. Join the movement and help change the face of Rotary.
All right, we're getting to the end of the meeting, and let me just go through a couple of announcements. Number one, don't forget to support the annual fund, as I just mentioned. Number two, make sure you answer the survey about meeting again, because we need to know what your thoughts are so we can figure out how we can get together as a group. Number three, check in on our Zoom calls sometime during the week. Number four, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Number five, fill out your high profile. And then finally, get ready to meet all together at Hacienda del Sol at our change of administration party on June 27th. The reign of terror is almost over, believe it or not. And our concluding comments for today is thanks to our guests and our visiting Rotarians. Thank you for the fantastic program, Dr. Kelly Reynolds. Congrats to our birthday folks, Nina, Pat Zumbush, and Daryl Stewart. Thank you, Cliff Bowman and the Car Show Committee, for all the work you've been doing in a time that really is unsettling. And to our guests out there in the online world, if you like what you saw, please consider joining our club. We really need people like you, especially at a time like today. And if you have questions, feel free to contact Arena in our office at 623-2281. We have one more virtual meeting left, and it is going to be around June 17th, give or take. And it's again another great speaker in light of the coronavirus. It is Mara Aspinall. She's the former president and CEO of Roche Ventana Medical Systems, and she's a worldwide expert on testing and diagnostics, and she knows everything there is to know about what's going on with testing and finding out what's going on with COVID-19 and the coronavirus. So here we are, it's time for our quote and our toast, and our quote is somewhat appropriate to today. I'm never in control of what happens around me, but I'm always in control of what happens within me. And for our toast, we have the following. I wish you health, I wish you well, and happiness galore. I wish you luck for you and your friends. What could I wish you anymore? May your joys be as deep as the oceans, your troubles as light as its foam, and may you find sweet peace of mind wherever it is you may roam. Hear, hear.